right, everyone, it is time for our favorite Monday episode here. It's time for Food Talk, and I'm not here alone. I am here with Matt again. Hi, Matt.
That's me.
That's you.
Howdy, howdy.
You are so far away from me. It feels weird.
But on the screen, we're right next to each other.
Yeah,
so.
that's true. If we go like this, it looks like we actually have the same arm.
There we go.
Very nice. Very nice there. I love it. But today, I am so excited because we have been getting questions about this over and over and over again. And finally, we are covering it today.
I know, right? Like there's so many times on different radio shows where it's like, oh, we need to do this, and you never get around to it, right? There are those like seasonal things you need to talk about.
Yes.
Or there's like other like pressing issues. But luckily, we're at a pretty good time of the year. All the stars have aligned to be able to talk about being vegan in Korea. Finally happening.
I hope Vroomi is listening right now because I feel like this is dedicated to her here. She was the one that had asked us a couple times about it. And so I'm so excited that we get to cover this. Now, I feel like we should start it off just by clarifying the terminology for those listening because veganism, vegetarianism, pescatarianism, all these things here in Korea. So how would we go about these?
Well, this is a little bit complicated. So we're going to first start by breaking it down in English, and then we're going to move it into Korean because things don't quite translate across the two languages. So when we're talking about veganism, right, we're talking about a completely plant-based diet that uses no animal byproducts or products at all. So that's not just meat or that's just not like the flesh of the fish, but it's just about anything else. That includes dairy as well. That includes eggs. And for some, this is a little bit more contested. Things like honey even are off the table for many vegans.
I've heard about that because of like certain ways that honeybees and stuff are kept and whatever, things like that. Some people are very against that. And so even honey can be off the table for certain people depending on viewpoints. And so it's a very, what do I want to say? It's a very unique life choice to make there.
That's correct. And it is, and if you're doing vegan all the time, it is a lifestyle just because it does require a lot of attention because life and the food around us isn't necessarily geared towards catering to a vegan diet very easily. It does require a little bit of effort on your part.
Yes.
Now, the difference between veganism and vegetarianism is that veganism is a pretty strict definition. Vegetarianism, there's not quite one strict definition for that. It can mean that you don't eat meat at all, but you eat, eggs and dairy. And if you want to be specific about that, then you're ovo-lacto-vegetarian.
Oh, okay.
Right. And then if you do eat fish, but you don't eat, say, red meat, or, you eat seafood, but you don't eat land food, that's a pescatarian.
Exactly.
Right.
I would say for me personally, I still do eat meat now and again. There wasn't any real decisive choice that I made to like try to cut out meat completely. I just decided that my body wasn't digesting it as well as it could. I noticed that when I kind of cut back on meats, my face would break out less and I would have less stomach problems and things like that. So I just decided, I love to eat meat still. I mean, you get me, I am the burger connoisseur here in Seoul. But for me personally, I've kind of cut back and incorporated more vegetarian style food. I'm not at the vegan lifestyle, but vegetarian style food, I think that helps too because a lot of my friends are kind of doing a similar thing. So when you have people who kind of eat the same way as you, it is a little bit more easy to function. But when you have a very different lifestyle than say your coworkers, it can be a little harder here in Korea.
Right, because meals are a special time in our day, right? Being able to sit down and share food with somebody, that's a big thing. And so and by doing a more vegan diet, that's very strict, that can limit the number of places and the opportunities that you have to be able to share meals with people, unless if you're always inviting them over to your place to eat.
That's true. And also, we got a nice message in here from Chiru. Chiru says, I'm allergic to veggies. Sorry.
Oh, it's a shame. There are a ton of delicious veggies out there. As a dedicated meat eater myself, I will say that I do eat many vegan meals quite often just because vegetables are delicious and meat is delicious.
Yeah, they're so good. And I will say that in the past 5 years, there has been such an improvement in terms of options
An
here.
explosion.
That's the best way to describe it. It just like, there suddenly was like an epicenter that just radiated out. And now you can find in many neighborhoods, you don't have to go to a specific neighborhood anymore for it. But so there's all these different terms. But then, as you said, people who just eat fish, some people who avoid all forms of it altogether. But like, would you say, in terms of comparison to the US and Korea, there's still a long way to go here in terms of availability, or would you say that you could actually find quite a large amount in places you wouldn't realize?
It's a tricky question. It's a
love that.
hard
I love
thing.
that.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to be able to say like, like this place is better for veganism, this place is not better for veganism, right? It's one of those yes but answers.
Oh, okay.
So there are a couple of things, right? So here in Korea,
Yeah.
while it is a lot more difficult to find vegan options at any given restaurant or to be able to find a place that specializes in vegan food, the difference is that the Korean diet is a lot easier to adapt to veganism than an American diet would be, right? There's less of that like meat to veg and a starch thing
Yes.
that's going on. Whereas here in Korea, at any given meal, I would say that there are far more elements on the table.
That's true because of all the banchan that we have. Banchan is the term for side dishes
Sure.
here, and we've covered a ton of banchan that we have here. It's not only kimchi. There are a ton of different types of 조림s that you can do, different types of grilled vegetables as well that you can get. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to adapt it.
Right. There's, like different namurs as well. I think one of the big ones too in the West, the kind of the crutch that a lot of vegans will use is dubu.
Oh, I love it.
And that is just such an integral part to the Korean diet. It's
Yeah.
not looked at as a meat substitute here. It's looked at as like the fourth meat.
Yeah,
Right.
it is. It's funny when I went to 강릉. 제가 강릉 갔을 때는 거기서 강릉은 그 두부로 유명하다고 들었는데 I heard that they're very famous for their 두부. But when I went there was like a menu of just 두부, like
Sure.
different types of 두부, the different way it's made. Like it's very easy to find different types of ways prepared and different ways to eat it here.
And to any newcomers coming here to Korea and you're interested in exploring a vegan lifestyle, or if you're vegan coming in and you're finding it difficult, pro tip, go to your local like 재래시장, go to your local market and get the fresh dubu that's made there. Just about every neighborhood has one of these markets, and just about every one of these markets has a stall that's dedicated to making fresh dubu every single day. And it is just miles ahead of anything that you can get from a package. It has real flavor to it, but not only that, you can get other things too. The best soy milk, the best 두유 you'll ever get is from these stalls, especially in the summertime when you can get 콩국수 육수.
Oh, I've never had that.
Oh, so okay, you're missing out. So 콩국수 is basically
Matt just dragging me here. He's
No, so
you aren't living life, so
this is the time to eat it. You have to eat it in the summertime because it is the most bizarre dish if I explain it to you, but you just have to try it. Because it's delicious. What it is basically they take the same beans that it's the first process of making 두부.
Okay.
So they grind the beans into like a really, really thick, unfiltered soy milk.
Yum.
So it's like a really velvety cream. that's
Already
made.
about this, yes.
And then they put noodles in there and sometimes a cucumber and salt. And that's it. But it is so simple and it is bland at first, but then you start noticing how deep that flavor is, how rich that broth is. It's creamy, it's velvety. Think of it as like the anti-carbonara.
Oh, I love
It hits that same spot, but it's cold and light instead of hot and heavy.
This sounds amazing, and it's exactly what I would want in the summertime. That's
Exactly.
why I always eat naengmyeon or bibinnnaengmyeon. But I mean, this sounds like the best option to go if you don't want to say go in the naengmyeon route.
Right.
This sounds like it's hitting all the same boxes, but just in a different form here.
You know how like a rich stew or like a glass of whiskey is like a sweater you wear on the inside. It just kind of warms you up. This is the opposite. This is like swallowing an air conditioning unit. It just cools you down from the inside out.
Swallowing, if everyone can just picture that, you just have a nice air conditioning unit inside of your chest. Now, we do have some really fun messages to get here. So I should look at it in front of me. Why am I looking over there? 현지최 says, 공국수 진짜 맛있어요. 국물도 시원하고 고소하고 그쵸. 제가 공국수 되게 좋아해요. I think it is so like just, what do I want to say? It's just that nice bit of freshness and coolness to like cool your body down.
Yes.
In the summer. I feel like not an ice cube, because an ice cube would be awful to eat, like just plain. It's just that nice little,
It's like a delicious version of calamine lotion.
yes, oh, it's so nice. I love it. Neo Bick says, yes, being a vegetarian helps a lot with skin. I will say I have definitely noticed an improvement in terms of my general health and energy by incorporating more vegetables in my life. I don't know if this is relevant, but I generally try to eat an all plant-based day about 2 to 3 times a week. And then the rest of the 4 days, I usually try to have an all plant-based meal once a day and then have meat the other meal. And that's kind of how I'm trying to balance my diet a little bit more and balance what works for my skin, I guess. Hwang Hug says, I think I'm the opposite of vegan. I rarely eat vegetables, but I'm trying to eat more. For people who don't like vegetables, is there any sort of like, gotta try this sort of things that might convert them over to team vegetables?
I think if you just eat whatever's good right then, right? So in our house, like I think we just for dinner, over the past week or so, I think we've just eaten watermelon and fresh corn. That's been like our dinner like a couple nights out of this past week. And I think that if you kind of go with like those like really nice, like I think when people think vegetables, they think, boring salad greens and whatnot. But really, there are so many beautiful things out there that are as good, if not better than meat. Like one thing that we do, we just take regular pyogo mushrooms, like, pyogo at our home, and then we just give them a really, really aggressive like sear. Like we roast them until they're really dark and nutty in the pan, and just a little bit of sprinkling of salt and chamgiram afterwards. Again, like we won't have meat that night. We'll just have a big pile of roasted mushrooms alongside what we have. And I think that if, like just like meat, you can prepare meat and it can be terrible.
It's true.
And you can prepare vegetables and they can be delicious. So,
it goes both ways, honestly. I actually did something similar. I know that in the US, a lot of people are really into, like, was that a mushroom burger or black bean burgers? I decided, I'm like, all right, I'm going to try something new for sandwiches. I got this, like, big slab of tubu, but it was so, like, gooey and yummy, and it kind of tasted like cheese almost. And then I put it with a big thing of hobak. Of pumpkin, and then I would put some like cabbage on the bottom, like little pechu there, and then like a little, what else did I put in there? Oh gosh, was there some cucumbers, I think? And it was just this nice, fresh, light sandwich that I had, but it was such a thick thing of thick with 2 C's of tubu there that I felt like I was eating like a big honkin' chunk of meat along with the hobak there. It was a substantial portion, but that to me was like just as good. And I mean, it's really all about seasoning, flavor, making those flavors.
Absolutely.
And just not leaving it this boring old. Of course, if you just eat a raw hunk of hobak, I mean, well, that's just gonna taste like that. So you gotta really flavor it, right?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, I would say that, one of the reasons why a lot of people go into veganism, right? You have things like, people caring for the environment and animal rights. But I think here in Korea, one of the big reasons people turn towards veganism is to diet, which is, I think, a tricky strategy.
Yes.
Because yes, if you are willing to tolerate, just the, like low fat, low carbohydrate diet on top of not having any meat, that's a lot of restrictions you're putting on yourself. Because to me, honestly, the best vegan meals are ones that are high in fat, lots of olive oil and coconut oils. It's super rich and it's bright. And then you have things like high carb as well.
Yeah.
The one thing I think all people can agree on, vegans and meat eaters, is that potatoes are delicious.
Oh, they're so good.
And so if you boil potatoes for like 10 minutes and then toss them in some olive oil with some thyme and garlic, put it in the oven for an hour, and it just turns so crispy until it turns into potato glass on the outside, and it's fluffy on the inside, and it's completely vegan. And I think when you're thinking about kind of doing a plant-based diet, I think that as long as you don't forget the fat and, like you said, the seasoning, the spices, the fresh herbs, I think that you can easily make some delicious meals at home.
For sure. And I will say that's the other thing that I think people often think is that you cannot make delicious things with plants, but especially like desserts. I wish I could 홍보 this group, but I cannot. But there is a place here in Seoul that has the most delicious vegan, gluten-free. So for any of you who has, what is that? There is
celiac?
Yeah, celiacs. It covers all that. They make the most delicious desserts. They had a rhubarb pie that brought me back to my grandmother's kitchen.
I think I know which place you're talking about,
oh
and they are delicious.
Oh my gosh, I nearly jumped out the second floor window screaming praises of this place. I'm like, how did you do this with like not making it with the same ingredients as my
Sure.
grandmother. You can do it. It's just like you said, the commitment and the time here. So if you choose to live in Korea, yes, you might have, if you choose to like live at home and do more of your cooking, there's going to be a little more effort on your
Right.
part. But there are places, so all you have to do is the research and finding out where these are and kind of seeing if it's somewhere nearby or that you're going to be going to. It's not as available as I'd say, like having a pure vegan restaurant as having, every neighborhood, but they do exist.
Absolutely. And one thing that travelers to Korea do need to be careful of is that you might look at a dish and it's like, oh, there's no meat that's apparent in here. There's no chunks of meat. However, there might be some meat or fish products in there that have been used to flavor that broth. So one thing that a lot of vegans in Korea will run into trouble with is that, they'll learn the phrase, 여기 혹시 고기 들어가 있어요?
Yeah.
Is there any meat in here? And if there's no chunks of meat, but there were used bones to make the stock,
Yeah.
a lot of times they will still answer, no, there's no meat in here because there's no actual meat. So a couple of words for travelers to learn are 동물 성재료. So that's the term for animal products.
Okay.
Eggs, milk, anything across the board, bones,
Yeah.
anything across the board. If you want to ask specifically about was it meat-based products,
Yeah.
that's 식육재료.
Okay.
And then if you want to ask about seafood products, and this is one you're going to have to ask about the most, is 어육재료. Again, that 젓갈, you have
Yep.
that 멸치. So just something to be careful of.
And then if you wanted to say that you are vegan, we usually use the term 비.건.
Right.
Right. But if you wanted to say you are vegetarian, what would you use then?
So this is where things get complicated because the term 채식주의자,
Yeah.
채식 means eating a vegetable-based diet.
Yeah.
So some people will use the terms interchangeably.
Okay.
Like they'll use the term 채식주의자 to talk about veganism because it is a lot, I wouldn't say trendier, but a lot more in the news nowadays.
Okay.
So nowadays it's being used kind of as a shorthand for being vegan.
Okay.
Because it's kind of, again, it's in that kind of, spotlight. But if you want to be more specific, 비.건 really is the best word to use because, again, 채식주의자, it's not as precise.
It's a
it
little
could just
flexible.
mean vegetarian as well. So just remember, 비.건.
비.건.
Not as good as agon, better than 시건.
I love it. And we do have some messages here. Hwang Mumin, love that name, says, the only vegetable I can eat is potato and squash. Well, I mean, those are two good choices, I'd
Yeah.
say, right?
Yeah,
Not too
yeah.
bad. Ashley here with a question mark says, veggie meals are so yummy, but I can never give up meat. I am still in that stage where I haven't been able to give up meat, but I have reduced my amount and it certainly has helped my body personally. Deep Scarlet says, I love fish, red meat, vegetables, fruits, dairy products. And my grandpa said that the only thing I don't eat are the things that are unable to be eaten. So like tires and soap and things like that.
With enough olive oil and salt, anything could be made delicious. But
Hey,
yes,
try
genie
it.
after my own heart.
I was going to say that one there. Yeah, Deep Scarlet, you and Matt seem to be vibing on the same thing here. Now, Matt, we always run out of time. So I feel like next week we'll be able to cover so much more in depth. So especially if people have questions.
I don't think we hit any of this today.
None of it. I wish people could see like how many notes we have here. John's banana choked me hell over here says vegan foods here are so pricey. This is the one thing I feel like we could cover before we have to go here in 2 minutes. What do you think about in terms of prices here? Is the 가성비 kind of worth the investment? Do you think it's better to make at home or better to eat out in terms of the vegan lifestyle?
Well, in general, almost all foods are better to make at home. I'd say there are a couple of there are a couple of exceptions, but most foods it will be more economical to make it at home. That being said, when you're going out to eat, you have to keep in mind that a lot of these vegan places, they are using a lot of imported ingredients because, again, these are not just Western dishes, but they're specialty Western dishes. So if you want to kind of go down the middle, one great resource is the internet because with online ordering, it's so much it's easier than ever to get imported ingredients here into Korea. So if you want to kind of get those restaurant vegan dishes, you can order those same ingredients and figure out how to cook it at home. A lot of them aren't too difficult to make. And as a matter of fact, I think that, you can reduce the costs by a lot by, doing it at home.
Yeah, and maybe that's something, if you guys are interested perhaps in anything like that, definitely send us a message either to our Instagram page. We can pass it on to Matt, and then maybe next week he'd be able to share something fun, something delicious that's vegan-based, and you guys could give it a try. Maybe you'll see, actually these vegetables aren't as, allergic as I thought they were. Well, thank you, Matt, so much for coming in again. Always a pleasure to have you.
Always a pleasure indeed.
And thank you guys as well for hanging out with me and Matt here at 한국어천재.